what would you do if we gave you $200,000? I'm like, nothing, because I have to build a business first, right? I don't need a secretary. I don't need a delivery driver. I don't need a photographer as long as I can do it.
Here's another classic.
Live from the CGTV studios in Newport Beach, I'm Cedric Channel.
And I'm Blake Nell.
And this is the CGTV Podcast. It's a good one, guys. We had Erik from Locale Magazine on the podcast today, and he broke down his story. Super interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think, honestly, it might have been the best episode we've had so far, just because I felt like he really opened up and was vulnerable about the moments that were a big struggle for him, because most people know him as super successful Locale Magazine, but he really talked about, hey, it wasn't always like this.
Yeah, when he was running out of money and he was in financial issues, I think it was year 4, he said, and he was in his car in the parking lot at a gas station and started to cry, and he got that call from BCBG for that $160,000 sponsorship. I literally got chills.
I did too. Yeah, because it wasn't that long ago that literally I was in that same position when I sold my car and thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then, a lot of things changed for me in a similar way. And so I can totally relate. And I think a lot of other people can relate to that moment as well.
Yeah, bro, channel's crew.
Freaking legend. All right, kick us off, Blake. You
segment.
good? You good with the adjustments?
I think we're great. We might be better than ever. Is this episode... We have 6 out or 7 out?
7 out.
So
about
8,
10 didn't make it.
8 will be Coffee Dose. 9 will be this, I think.
Yeah, depending if Matt cuts this fast, it'll be faster.
Yeah.
Depends.
8 or 9.
Matt was sick last week, so.
But anyway, we have Erik, what's your last name?
Hale, Erik Hale.
Erik Hale from the famed Locale Magazine. How many people say it wrong? How many funny sayings of your magazine? Hey, you own Locale?
I think at the beginning I got a lot of...
I think it's pretty easy to say, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are not very smart. So.
I got a lot of, is it a diet magazine, like Low Calorie? I got a lot of that at the beginning. But I think with any branding, it can be important to have a name that's hard to say. Nike or Nike, Porsche. I think once people learn it, then they feel like they know it, and it becomes part of them, because every time that somebody says it wrong, they correct them. So I think it's great to have a name that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So who else is out there in Orange County? I know you're not in Orange County anymore. You're in the desert. You're in LA. Who else is out there in Orange County that's your competitor?
Gosh, this sounds awful, but I've never felt like I had competitors.
I don't think you do either.
And not from that perspective, not like from being boastful, but I feel like business is a lot more like golf than it is like baseball. I'm not going head to head with them every day. I'm just going to go out and shoot my best round. So we just focus on being the best that we can be every day, and just getting that little bit of practicing Kanai, constant and never-ending improvement, get a little bit better, 1% better every day. And then if they keep up, they keep up. But so far, it's proved to be a successful strategy.
Yeah, I mean, my buddy owns, he's sponsored with you, a very small sponsor, Cafe Sakana, right?
Mm-hmm.
You guys got
great.
that.
Love them. Great sushi spot.
And he was telling me a little bit about like how you're creating these packages for people with points and things like that. It's super interesting to me.
Yeah, it's something probably that dates back to when I was in the car business. We did in the finance department, we did menu selling all the way back in the mid 90s. And people don't like to make decisions. I don't know if you ever noticed that. It's not something that most people excel at, is deciding something. And the more successful and busy the person is, the less decision making they want to make. So if you can simplify what they're trying to do, I think it leads to success. So about 3 or 4 years ago, we went from the traditional selling, and most advertising is sold kind of like the way you buy jewelry, right? Was $79,500, but you can have it for $1,800, right? It just didn't make sense to me. So whenever you're pitching somebody, you're always pitching in these singular items, when in reality what we do is multifaceted. So, excuse the pun with the jewelry, but if you want the client to really take advantage of everything that we do, we package it together. And the way that we did that, we kind of just stripped away the pricing and assigned point values to everything that we do. So the back cover is worth 15 points, and a social media post is worth 2. An email blast that is all alone, standalone email, is 3 points, and an event sponsorship is 10. So we give you, on our partnerships, which are year-long partnerships, we give you the ability to pick your budget. So I want to spend $1,000 a month, or I want to spend $10,000 a month. And those equate to points that are the real true value or price of those items, not the negotiated down price. So you can just come in and say, I want to spend $2,000 a month. You get X points. So all 400 of our customers have a customized media package. Everyone is different. So somebody will say, I really want social media contest, or I want email blast, or an event at my location. So we just allow them to kind of pick what they want to do.
That's cool. I mean, I never heard anything like it. And when I was talking to him, I was like, oh, that's why this is working. Because you talk to all these other guys. I don't even want to name their names. But it's just like, this is X amount. If you're friends with so-and-so, it's X amount and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, if you do an editorial, we'll pay blah, blah, blah. It's like, this system makes so much more sense.
Yeah, and we're really looking to be your partner. We're not looking to sell you an ad and just see how that works. We want to talk strategy with you and figure out what you're trying to accomplish, work backwards towards that, and then come up with a plan that works along your plan to make that happen. And the partnership amount allows you to have a flat line in your budget. So you don't have the $0 in January, $0 in February, and we're going to spend $8,300 in March. That's a lot bigger check to write. So when it's just the same amount every month, you can plan for that. And then maybe there's some months where you are dark, but that there are also some months where you can really go after it.
So do you think, if you had to describe Locale, okay, I mean, it probably is transformed into something different than when you started.
Oh, yeah.
How long has that been?
10 years this month.
Oh, you just said that.
Yeah.
I was just talking about that.
Yeah, it's been a long journey, and it has transformed a lot. I learned a lot, but it's been 10 years already.
So you think it's more of a lifestyle now?
That wasn't always my goal. I mean, our company's name was Locale Lifestyle Magazine. Our LLC is that. So we were always trying to promote lifestyle, but I think from the very beginning, what I saw was a void in all mediums of telling people what's great about their community. You kind of live in a bubble. We've actually said that there are bubbles even in Orange County. So I actually called them pods. This is 10 years ago, but I said, if you live in your Newport Beach pod, you'll probably do business or maybe go to restaurants in the pods that touch your pod. Costa Mesa, maybe you trip down to Laguna every once in a while, but you're very rarely in Fullerton or Santa Ana or maybe even Huntington Beach.
And when you say rarely, never.
Right. But so what we thought we could do is just tell stories that isolate in those different communities and try to include all those communities to tell a story, because even inside your pod, you have like your three go-tos. You're at Hotcakes for breakfast. Maybe you're Avila's guy for Mexican and for lunch, and maybe you have like your set pizza place or your set sushi place. Maybe like Cafe Sakana,
Laventina's.
Right, but that's usually a delivery situation. So you kind of have these set routines, so you don't even really know what's going on. You don't know when Gracias Madre opens. You don't know when a new restaurant opens in Laguna or a new hotel, and it's really cool. I think it helps civic pride, right? Because you can actually take pride in how cool your city is and the way that it's developing. And if you can get that information to people through print, through advertising, through social media posts, through email, you can get them to actually activate in their community. And that was my idea from the very beginning was, and it was probably a very naive approach, but I was like, these big box stores, right? Like that money, very little of it stayed in our community. The employees might not work in Newport Beach or Costa Mesa or Huntington or Laguna. They might be traveling in. The owners are definitely not from there. They're big corporations. So my idea from the beginning was, how do we support the people in this community and keep the dollars in the community by getting them to go to new restaurants and new boutiques and smaller shops? But it has transformed. I mean, now we have national advertisers like Constellation Brands with Corona and Modelo, and William Grant with big liquor companies like Hendrick's Gin and stuff like that, and Harrah's. We have a lot of bigger clients now, so that's how it's changed. But we're still very core to the local community, I think.
When did it go from Newport, Costa Mesa to the desert to Los Angeles?
That's a long story. Well, we start
4 hours.
I guess I'll just go back to the genesis really quick and try to skip through that as quickly as
Well,
possible.
what I was going to do is I was going to get into the nitty gritty of the business, and then I wanted to hear about your story.
Oh, good. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So when did it go? So we've been in Orange County for 10 years. Had the brilliant idea and scary idea to go to San Diego 8 years ago. Los Angeles, we're coming up on 6 years. And almost 4 out in Palm Springs. And we also do stuff in Las Vegas and San Francisco as well. And we've been doing that for 5 or 6 years too.
So will that keep going? Or do you think you're going to stick to Southern California?
38-year-old Erik that started it 10 years ago. My daughter had plans of taking the Locale jet to Locale Paris. But 48-year-old Erik just doesn't have the gas, the air in my lungs to think that way. I just kind of want to have a great life and do what I can in this community. So I don't see it growing outside of where I can drive to.
So I met you, I think about 6 years ago. I was working at David August, and Holly calls me in her office. I'll never forget this. And she's like, hey, I want you to meet my buddy Erik. And this is obviously when Locale was still... Well, no, you were going.
Yeah, we were going. Yeah.
I think you might have had like Red O by then. And
well, yeah, we had probably that market and San Diego at that point, yeah.
And she's like, oh, this guy's changing the game and blah, blah, blah. And she's pitching me. And I'm like, what the hell is she talking about? And then I met you and I'm like, oh, this guy's cool. Yeah, like suits, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think anything ever happened to it because Holly's always moving to the next thing, you know. But I remember looking into the magazine that next day, and then I looked at it the other day before I called you and said, would you come on the podcast? I was like, holy crap, man. Yeah. This thing's turned into like, I mean, for me locally, it's the only magazine I can think of where I go, what's a successful magazine that's doing digital online presence with a print component that's actually working. Right. Like I literally can't think of another one.
And I think that goes back to the menu selling that we do, because if you were just a print magazine, I mean, how relevant could we be in this market? Because people want return on their investment. They want to see people coming in the door, whether the door is a digital door, a social door, or their front door. They want to see it driving traffic. They want to be able to measure that. So I think the fact that we did expand to that very early on, and when I say early on, I would say we opened our doors in February 2010. And without naming the names of our local competitors, I put a real big emphasis on Facebook at the time. And before our first magazine came out, we had more Facebook fans than every other publication, newspaper, radio station, TV in Orange County before our first issue came out. And we kind of did the same thing with Instagram. When that thing hit, we've, pushed that as hard as we could. And, we have 213,000 followers. We're a leader in that market. Embarrassingly, I have a TikTok account with 2,200 followers now as well, because I just want to get ahead of that trend. And there's nothing good on there right now. So if anybody's going to look up our TikTok account, it's literally dumb videos.
Same with us.
We have a TikTok?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
We've had one for like 6 months.
But we're just trying to grow that. So anything that's new, I think that's the one thing is, even though I tease myself about being older, I think the important thing is to think young and, follow those trends and always be on that cutting edge.
Well, you're very hip. So, and I consider myself a hip guy, so take that as a compliment.
You just aged both of us a lot with that statement.
But here's what I wanted to get to that I was trying to talk about earlier. I think you are a representation of the brand, because I follow you on Instagram. Yeah. I'm watching. You're always doing something, and it's not like corny. You know what I mean? It's always like, no, this is my life that I'm living, and my magazine is representing the life that I'm living.
It's funny that that you say that, because Locale, and we started talking about the name earlier a little bit and how people mispronounce it, but Locale, up until about 5 years ago, the E was always a different color, because secretly it was also Local E Magazine, which is my Instagram handle, local_E, Local Erik. So it was about things that I liked, and it was supposed to be.
There you are.
Yeah, there I am.
I just followed him.
Yeah.
Now you have 5,206 followers.
Awesome.
That's what I'm talking about.
Bunch of strangers looking at pictures of my kids is exactly what
He's
set
good
out
at the
to do.
consistency.
Yeah.
Like whenever I'm like, I gotta step up my game, I look at his. And it's like, oh, he'll give you something. And he's always doing something interesting. If you go to his office, like we have a cool office that we're working on, his is. I hate to say this, it's just as cool. And it's like they have like a community center in the middle where it's like somebody get an interior designer come in.
My sister-in-law, Hillary Hale Interiors on Instagram, if you want to check
Shout
her out.
out, friends of the show.
It's like she designed this center room that's like, I went and visited him like 6 months ago, and I was so blown away. I just wanted to hang out there. And then all the offices are around this center room.
Right.
So like everyone kind of knows what everyone's doing, but they're still like separate and they can like work, and it's so communal. And he's like, just come to my office. We started chatting. I was like, this is like what I want my office to be like. You know what I
Thank
mean?
you. It took a long time to get it there for sure.
Does he also have white epoxy floors?
No.
Oh.
No one has the balls to do that. And if you look at our floors now, you know why.
So public service announcement for anyone that listens to our podcast. The last podcast we posted was Ryan Fisher.
Yeah.
I listened to it back because I always listen to all of our podcasts back. And I realized, and I told Cedric this, that I cut Cedric off so many times during that podcast.
Like cutting him off like this?
Exactly.
Oh, God. Okay. Just checking.
Well, he did it earlier today, and then he goes, oh, you already said that. So right now I can tell in this podcast, he's like, okay, I got to be self-aware. I can already tell.
Well, he said it, but it wasn't on camera.
Right.
So our viewers did need to know how long. I thought about that right after I said it, and I was like, oh, I was still right. But I was like, I told Cedric, I was like, oh, next podcast, I really need to not cut you off. And if you listen to the podcast, it's not like I'm cutting him off. Like, I'm just excited.
Yeah, he got really excited.
And so, because some of our guests are like Cedric's people, and then
Right.
some of them are kind of like more my people.
Right.
Because we have two
Which
different
one am
worlds.
I?
You're probably
everybody.
Cedric's
Oh, I'm
person.
just
No,
checking.
you're a
Just
man of
wanna
the
see where I'm
people.
at.
He's
Yeah.
a man of the people. He's
Right.
locale.
Yeah, but like we usually, it's like our sphere of influence, who comes on the show.
Right.
Somehow we have a connection with someone, and sometimes it's my connection, sometimes it's both of ours, sometimes it's Cedric's, and so and because Cedric has lived here longer than me, he's from Laguna. He knows more people, so more of the people we've had on have been his connections per
Right.
se. So when I have my connection, I'm like, oh, yeah.
You know, he goes like
Hey
this, he goes,
everybody! I'm like, hey, it's the Blake Show, and this.
I think I was guilty of that because one of the things that we've gotten the supreme pleasure to do is to interview some pretty cool people, right? You're sitting there going like, wow, I can just tell you, I didn't do the interview myself this time, but this is probably indicative. We shot Landon Donovan, who is the new coach of the San Diego Loyal, at his new stadium in the locker room just a couple weeks ago. And I'm a football, soccer nut, and just the ability to be in the same room with Landon was pretty big to me. And when I used to interview people like that, and we've had quite a big, a lot of celebrities over the years, I would record the conversations when I was interviewing them. And I found that about 90% I was interviewing myself. I'm like, oh yeah, me too. And I did that. And I did see you do that. And let me tell you this story. And I'm like, guy, I would listen to that so embarrassed. It's like you learn to be, it takes a while to learn it, but it's like, yes, you're excited, but you're interviewing them. So it's about them. It's a hard skill to learn because conversation is commonality. So as soon as they say something, it begets another conversation. So I sympathize with you.
And we've been even talking about, we're like, we should probably have every quarter, we should do an episode that's just him and I talking.
Oh, yeah.
So that we could literally just cut each other off, and just go back and forth.
You should probably just do that and then watch it yourself and not put it on the network.
100%. So true. Well, we did our first podcast was just him and I, and we had one of our media guys listen to it, and he's like, yeah, you're not leading with that. And we're like, what are you talking about? It's not that good. We're like, no, it's the best thing we've ever heard because it's ourselves talking. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, awesome.
This coming from a kid that told me he had never listened to a podcast. I was like, you're not the right critic.
Maybe you guys could just like screenshot your text conversations. People would like to read through those.
Yeah, we did that once. It didn't work out very well.
Okay.
It gets a little borderline on those texts.
But anyway, back to our guest.
Back to the guest. So how many copies are you printing?
We've always done the same, 20,000 per issue per market. So about 400,000 magazines a year.
Wow.
10 years ago, you did 400,000?
No, 20,000 per issue. So when we were just in Orange County, we did 4 issues a year, which we still do. So about 80,000. So as we add in new markets or new issues, but we make somewhere around 400,000 magazines a year across California.
Will it always be quarterly? And what is the reason for the quarterly?
Well, at the beginning, there was only 2 employees, and we couldn't make a magazine faster. And also the expenses and the advertisers you have to get and everything that goes along with it. I was actually told by somebody that was in the business, magazine that's no longer in business, that I will never make it as a quarterly magazine. That's the worst idea he'd ever heard. He told me over lunch, and I said, well, we'll see. And now it's actually better. I think some of the best parts about it is if you look at our magazine, it is jammed with content because now we have 3 months to come up with everything that's going on. So some publications you might see 6, 5, 4 real stories and then a bunch of pictures of events and different things like that. Our goal is usually 26 to 32 individual stories per magazine. So it gives us the chance to do that. It gives us a chance to lock down these bigger covers and then work on different markets each month. But I think one of the largest things or the biggest benefit has been the fact that we put the racks out. We put the magazines in the rack when it hits. They still go just as fast. I mean, usually we go through them in about 3 weeks, but then we come back and pick up the racks. So we're front of mind, right? You see the magazine, and then you come back to Hotcakes or come back to wherever you pick up the magazine the next month, and we're not there. So the next time you see it, you're like, oh, I'm going to get it again. And I think if you're there monthly, you're like, did I get that issue or not? I can't remember if that's that cover or the one that I got. So quarterly, I think it makes it like you see people grab it, it disappears in days, and they're taking it home to read it, which is really what we want. And that's the other reason we have so much content. You should never be able to read our magazine over lunch at Wahoo's. You should have to take it home and read it on the couch and read it at the beach and use it as a reference for a long time.
So I used to advertise in another, I don't know if it's a magazine, but they release once a week, I think. You know, we won't say their name. And I remember I would drop my money on that and I'd do a full page spread. And then like as soon as people would actually start to get it, the next one would be out. And it would drive me nuts.
Yeah, we don't distribute any longer, but Wing used to have us distribute in all of his Wahoo's in Southern California. And the one thing that they used to tell us was your magazine's never left behind on the tables or put in the trash. Oh. And that was the real testament, right?
What a compliment, right?
Yeah, because every other magazine, you flip through it, you're done, it goes in the trash, leave it on the table, they have to clean them up. And that was one of the nicest things that he said was just like they just disappear. People take them with them.
I mean, I'm not a magazine guy, but I always, for some reason, always go through your whole entire magazine.
Oh, thank you.
You know, and I studied advertising in college, and I don't know if I got anything from it, but I got enough to know that like you've got a good magazine, which is cool.
Appreciate
which
that.
is a good compliment.
How does it work? So like I've seen your racks at Jan's.
Mm-hmm.
So if I went in there and I picked up, do I pay at the register?
It's a free publication.
Oh, so
yeah. So if you think our magazine, our magazine is essentially
it's genius.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's free.
So that's
I never knew that.
So they all go really quickly. And the reason we do, if you think about what we are, we're really a community co-op. You can look at it however you want. We're the content arm of a community co-op. So we get 100 businesses in Orange County that pay us advertising money. And then we go out and cover stuff. And then we put this publication in front of them socially, digitally, and in print and in events. And they are the ones that cover that cost. So it's really it's a community service based out of a co-op. And that's why the magazine's free.
I'm so glad I asked that question because if I didn't know that, a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. I'm sure that a lot of people don't take it because they think that they'd be stealing, but
wow.
And that's the idea kind of, right? Like
that is so cool.
You want them to think like, wow, I'm getting a nationally looking magazine that's 200 pages for free. They feel like they're really getting a bargain when they're leaving with it.
Well, I don't know. You should look through one of these, like, every time I look through, I'm like, oh, there's a couple restaurants I need to try.
Oh, yeah.
There's a couple guys I know that I haven't talked to in a year that are doing well. It's it's like I almost like catch up on what's going on.
That's the idea. If we want to make the magazine every time, whether you live in San Diego or Orange County or Palm Springs or LA, that when you pick it up, somewhere through there you go, oh, that's my spot that I eat Italian at. Or, hey, that's my friend that I've known for 30 years. Or that's that guy I know. It should feel like part of the community, and every single person that picks it up that's out in the community will find commonality in every issue.
100%. I think that's the coolest thing is it's cool for someone who's 20. It's cool for someone who's 50.
Yeah. This is odd. And I'm not saying this, I guess it's just a relatable story to the situation, but it's kind of embarrassing. But I live in Newport Heights. So I was walking through the neighborhood the other day and there was an elderly couple, I would say probably in their 70s if I had to guess. And they were raking up leaves. And I just stopped to chat with them, ask them if they're getting some good cardio, just being a good neighbor. And halfway through the conversation, this nice lady looks at me in the eyes and says, "Are you the Locale guy?" And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "That's my favorite magazine."
That's awesome.
And when people look at my magazine, a lot of times they go, oh, this is for kids. And I'm like, no, this is for community. Just because it looks more modern doesn't mean it's for young people. People of all ages want their community represented well.
Did you get goosebumps? I just literally got goosebumps when you said that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did you get that when that happened?
I did, but it's happened to me before. Jeff Yokoyama is a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
He has a shop down on.
I have 100 of his garments.
Down on PCH, and he's like a mentor. He's a great guy, and I just love chatting with him. But he told me a story, and I won't name drop here, but a famous musician had come into his shop and had come in with his mother, and this was like 7 or 8 years ago, and she was, I think, in her 80s. And saw the magazine with Jeff in it. He happened to be in that issue, and she goes, oh my gosh, that's my favorite magazine. So I've always felt like when people say it's a magazine for, young people, I've probably received more compliments from people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and that resonates with me. I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you know anything about aesthetics, it's just very hip and well done. It's not for someone in their 20s. It's just the way you build that magazine. Like the other ones, they try to do like glory glamour shots, and this is so like you're taking lifestyle and you're making it cool that it's so relatable. It's not like all these other magazines or publications where it's like a fake life. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like a lot of people on Instagram too are promoting this like fake life, and yours is just like, no, just come along with the ride and in the community. I've never seen anything like it. That's one of the reasons I asked you on here.
Yeah, I would say that, it's funny you say that because we were at Wahoo's for a long time. Sometimes people would say, oh, well, like your magazine's at Wahoo's. And I was like, who do you think eats at Wahoo's? Do billionaires have like a separate restaurant they eat at? Because billionaires, I for sure eat Wahoo's.
We literally had a conversation.
Billionaires eat at Bear Flag. The place that we have our magazine, if it's in the local community, that's where these affluent people eat. There's not a secret restaurant that is just for black card holders. I mean, there's probably a few in this area, but in reality, we're all, the people that live in this community, that live in these homes that are affluent, they still get chronic tacos in Corona Del Mar.
We had this conversation yesterday, right? What did we talk about?
We were talking to this guy last night, and he was pitching us on this stuff, and he's like, I mean, like Whole Foods. He's like, take Whole Foods for example. Like rich people shop at Whole Foods. And I was like, I'm pretty sure. And he was like, yeah, and like CrossFit gyms and tanning salons. Like all those people have disposable income. I'm like, I've been around long enough to know that the people that shop at Whole Foods, not generally, but just there are definitely a lot of people that shouldn't be shopping there because they can't afford it.
Right.
And the people that are wealthy are shopping at Albertsons, or they're going to, Baja Taco, and they're not going to Javier's or wherever. It's like, that is such a funny paradigm to me. I'm like, why? How did we get upon like wealthy people go to tanning salons?
I also think that if you segment that part of the population, if that's your goal, which a lot of publications and a lot of people, that's their goal. We want to reach the richest 1% for real estate even. I'm like, fantastic. Sell those people. That's great. Or you could have the next 50% of people that, even if you're in real estate, maybe they're not, balling out of control, but they are living in a $1.5 million house or a $2.5 million house, which seems insane to say that somebody could be living in a $2.5 million house here in Newport and not be extremely wealthy. But I think by standards around here, there's almost, if $1 million house almost doesn't exist anymore, right?
It's the weirdest thing ever to live in this community because you have doctors, you have lawyers. It's like, oh, they're poor. It's like,
I would actually never say that. This is Erik Hale saying that. Cedric said that.
Cedric Channel said that happily.
I like all those people.
My dad's a lawyer.
Especially any lawyers with pending litigation ideas. I think you're amazing.
Our website is Braille compliant.
Yeah, I know. Very Braille compliant. Yeah. January 1st, 2020.
But no, it's just the market has skyrocketed. I mean, especially selling. We go to these homes and we're like, how much you want for this? And we're like, what?
It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in East Side that hasn't been renovated in 30 years. Like, well, $1.7 million. We're like, your house is it's not even worth the construction that they did.
Once again, that's not me. I think you have a nice house.
I know you. I've been there 40 times.
I've been to your house. I have a lot of
man.
friends that live in East Side Costa Mesa, and your house is worth 1.7.
I hope it is.
I hope so too. We get paid more.
Where do you live in Newport Heights?
On Catalina. I'm not going to give my
No,
exact
no,
address.
no,
What kind of stalker thing you got going on here?
My wife.
Are you going to drop by?
It's the Cape Cod house.
Hey!
We leave the back door unlocked, and my kid's window, if you
We're gonna-
push it really hard.
Just make sure
We're going to be gone this weekend if anybody wants to stop by.
if you're doing any remodels and my wife and I are walking by, you'll probably get a phone call from me. Hey, just want to see if there's anything I can do for you. They're like, no, why? I'm like, you're painting your house. Are you selling it? They're like, no. I'm like, no problem.
You need a realtor? No, I'll still show up.
My wife and I live on 16th and Orange, right by
Okay.
Heller Park.
Oh, yeah.
And,
We probably walk by your house with our dog every single night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we always walk around the area. And we usually go to the Heights. It's just nicer to, less traffic and stuff. And I always walk around and I see.
Yeah, that whole block difference right there. I mean, it just gets so much nicer.
Well, literally,
I was thinking the same thing.
the difference is like,
What's the same
You know when
place?
you go 100 feet down Santa Ana and it just, the whole world changes?
The oxygen is a little better over
15th
there.
Street?
You know, to the rich neighborhood, 100 feet away.
with all those doctors.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we
They
walked
can't
through
live
there.
there.
And
All those poor ass doctors.
I'm
That
always
was
like-
Cedric.
I always look for like anyone doing anything, and I like write the address down, and I'm just like, oh hey, and I'm like, you guys selling? No, no worries.
While we're on that subject, I do have 3 more questions for you since we're interviewing you.
Yeah.
If you want me to, do you want me to go that direction?
I'm working on not cutting everyone off.
So we almost got a guy for Blake to just tap him. All right, 30 seconds.
Tap. Put a clock up.
I had my own podcast. I should have just go back to that.
Yeah.
And just post it on Facebook or something.
Yeah, for your family.
But I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because we have this weird thing where we feel like, I think when we put out a piece of content or we put out a new marketing thing, it's similar to like the way you might feel when you put out a new edition, right? It's like you know how much work has gone into that,
Right.
how many people have touched that, and when it hits, you in your mind, or at least in our minds, I think we're like, everyone's gonna freak out. Everyone's
Right.
like, oh my gosh,
Right.
the new issue,
Right.
whatever. And then it's like that doesn't happen necessarily
Right.
the way that maybe in your mind you thought it would. Like talk about like the first time your first issue.
Okay.
Like, what was that feeling like?
And if your first issue is a home run, give us not the home run.
Oh, yeah. I could start lying. No. Do you want? I mean, is this where you want to go origin story, or
Well,
are we just talking about this?
well-
I just want to make sure that I'm following
Yeah,
the script.
so what I
There's
want
like
no script.
There's 13 pages of script here, guys.
Well, here's
all
the deal.
in small print.
That guy
I
is
can't believe
very
it.
good at editing, so he can be like,
Oh, really?
"Oh, this is a great timeline. You really put this together. You had a nice synopsis."
Cedric's hit his mic 3 times.
Yeah, yeah.
I've hit none. I just
Good.
want everyone to know that.
Should have a little whiteboard right here.
So,
You wanted to know
No,
about
no,
the
so
first issue?
Let's do this.
Okay.
Because I want to hear about that a lot. Right?
Okay.
Why don't you just take it back? Like, you've been in the 2 hardest industries. Yeah. Like, what's that noise you do, Matt? Right.
I never
Anyway,
heard that.
so it's in our opening in our podcast.
It's February 2010.
You were in Cars. You were in
Oh,
Cars.
I'm going to go all the way back.
Oh, I think you've gone in the hardest.
Where were you born?
Yeah.
At what time?
Where is your great great grandmother from, and when did she immigrate?
This is the East of Eden by John Steinbeck. Okay.
So you've been in 2 really hard industries, and you've done pretty damn well in both of them. So take us into, like, you were in Cars, and
Okay.
then why did
We'll
you
start
start
there.
this, and why would you? I mean, if you tell most people I'm starting a magazine, they're like, "What the hell are you thinking?"
Even in 2010.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Okay. Well, I'll speed through that, and I'm not going to bore you by going back to my SAT scores or
It's
anything.
okay. We have a fast forward button.
Okay.
People can listen to it on 1.5 speed if they want.
Okay. So if I just go back to in the car business, I started at Fletcher Jones in 2003 as a sales consultant, and I think I did relatively well from the beginning. I actually talked my brother into coming to join me. He moved up from San Diego, so he moved up in November 2003. Shout out to my little brother, Brandon Hale.
Brandon.
Not little, my younger
He's
brother.
still there, right?
He just got promoted, so if you're looking for an Audi, Brandon Hale is the new general manager of Fletcher Jones Audi, which is building a brand new
Good for him.
mega store right there where Ganal Lumber was on Bristol. So be looking for that soon. If you need an Audi, go see Brandon Hale. I'm not going to give a cell phone number. That's odd. Okay, so
Works.
we worked together, and when I brought him over, we started something called Hale Group. It was originally Hale Brothers, became Hale Group, and we were just this little team, but I was selling about 35, 40 Mercedes a month at the time, and he was selling 30, so we were selling 75. So quickly we became, like one of the biggest producers there at that store. And he had a function of meeting new people. He was really good at that, and selling people that we didn't know. And I had a really good function of being on the phone every day. So get in the office at 7:30, write thank you cards, maybe 30 or 40, birthday cards, sign all of those, and then I'd be on the phone till like 3:30, maybe 75 to 100 phone calls. So I was all about client retention. He was all about client, what's the right word? Acquisition, right? So over the years, we kept growing. And a lot by repeat and referral customers, to the point where, and I think our last year we had about 78% repeat and referral. So there wasn't a lot of going to meet new people. It was just,
That's a great number in cars, man.
hey, I got to, and a lot of our cars were sold to Hollywood and San Francisco and Las Vegas, and we would literally do the deal in an hour or two, put somebody in a car, and you could be driving your car in San Francisco that night. We would drive it up to you. So we had this high level of service, and because of that, we grew, and all of a sudden we had more salespeople on our team, and we had, like 5 or 6 assistants running around helping us do all the paperwork and test drives and stuff like that. And I think the top of the market before everything went to hell, like December 2006, I think we sold 120 Mercedes, just my brother and I. So we were doing really well at that. It was kind of monotonous though. And
In 1 month.
In 1 month,
Yeah.
yeah. We were selling probably 1,000 plus Mercedes a year.
I don't think people understand, like I know something about the car business. I don't think people understand how many, like that, the top guys over there at Fletcher Jones, whatever the hell his name is, Sullivan, whatever, and all those guys, I don't think they're doing that much.
James Sullivan, my old running buddy.
Right?
Yeah. No, I mean, there's guys that sell 25 or 30, but we kind of built the first team. So we had a team that was just cranking that out kind of every single month. And we did really well. Recession hit. I watched far too much CNN. Kind of lost myself a little bit. Still was successful. And just fast forward. It's a funny story. People will appreciate it. But I had a full Jerry Maguire moment right before I started this company, and I'm not exaggerating. I raised my hand in the sales meeting, and I had written out this fable, like a fairy tale, about how the mortgage business was crashing. But I put it all in terms of castles and medieval stuff. And I read this aloud in the sales meeting in front of like 60 people. And then had the brilliant idea of coming downstairs and emailing every Fletcher Jones employee, including Ted Jones, the owner, all 600 people, and sent this all out to them. And I think I got 3 days off of work because of that, but I left shortly after. I was like, I kind of hit my tipping point of what I wanted to accomplish there, and just mentally needed a break with the recession hitting. So the best thing you can do in a recession, if you have a really good job, is quit and then start a print magazine that you know nothing about, right, the next day. It's like, that's perfect, right? Because in a recession, everybody wants to spend money on advertising. And if you've never made a magazine before, one of the easiest things to do is to, take pictures and come up with the ideas and sell all the ads, right? So brilliant.
And everyone has tons of money for extra advertising dollars.
Oh, yeah.
When they're barely...
Everybody. And everybody's telling you how smart it is to make a magazine in a recession when you have no experience. So there was a lot of support, like people are really getting behind me. So next time a recession hits, just find the industry that is the least likely to succeed, I guess, and go into that. So that's what I did. I left one day. I literally just drove around Costa Mesa. I found an office that had a for rent sign in it above Keen Coffee. Went in and gave them 3 months in advance of rent. And, I don't have wealthy parents. And I was a car salesperson, so we spent every dollar that we had. So I just had some money poked away in a safe, not very much, and started it from scratch. And the great part was now, once I actually walked in and, I left Fletcher Jones, and they've always been great. They're still an advertiser today and a partner. They have been this entire journey, so they've always been supportive, and I love everybody there. They're great, probably the best organization that I've ever worked for, and probably one of the best in the country. But when I left there, I didn't realize till I left that I had absolutely no idea what I was in for and no idea what to do. My first question was, who prints magazines? Who designs magazines? Who who's going to write these stories? What are the concepts? And I should have brought the book with me today. You would love it. But I literally have the binder still. I have an aqua binder that I picked up at Staples on 17th that had the clear see-through cover on the front. And I just wrote front cover and slid it into there. And then I started taking white pieces of paper and being like, table of contents, and writing that and putting that as a placeholder and like trying to figure out what this is going to look like. So February 10th was the first day of Locale. And Ashley Hickson, who's still with me now, was an employee that was working for another publication, and she started with me for not very much money. We kind of drew out some names on a napkin at a Starbucks, and we started the business. And we had to figure all these things out. So in our first issue came out July 1st of 2010. So 100 days. So in 100 days, we had to figure out where to get it printed, what it was going to be about, get designers. But on July 1st, we had a magazine with 104 pages. Our cover, funny enough, we printed out a fake magazine with no words in it. It was like this flimsy piece of 16 pages. That's what I walked around and sold with. And the image that I had found was this young girl surfing, walking on the jetty. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. This looks like us. This will be our mock-up. And I'd walked in to see Allman Surfboards. He had just opened, Dave Ali. And I was talking to him about advertising. And he did advertise with me his first few years. And he looks at this ragtag piece of 16 pages and he goes, oh, that's Erica Hosseini. I'm like, who? He goes, she lives right down the street. Erica Hosseini, she's a surfer. I go, oh my God, can you introduce me? And he did. Our first cover was Erica Hosseini. Just had dinner with her the other night. Her and my wife are really good friends. And it was just... I felt like in the car business, every part of my life had been running through brick walls, right? You put up a wall and I'll find a way to get through it, right? Always through the wall. So if you said no, there's always a no right before a yes. So everything was straight through the wall, right?
It's like Blake's life.
That's how you do, right? You just tell me there's something on this side of the wall, get to it. And that's how I'd always operated. Locale was the first time that I didn't run through a wall. I kind of had a philosophy change, and I said, if there's an obstacle, I'm just going to be a stick on the shoulders of a mighty river, and I'm going to go around it. I'm going to go wherever this river takes me. So I didn't fight it. I just kind of went with the flow. So this was the first time things just started like lining up, like that cover with her, and people said yes, and a restaurant said yes, and Warren Christopher Flooring said yes, and Quiet Woman, who's still an advertiser, and Ron Salisbury at the cannery, all these great people, Candy at Where's the Party on 17th, they all were just helping me.
Now, you had serviced them at Fletcher.
Never.
Oh.
I don't have one customer other than Fletcher Jones that I knew before I started this magazine.
That is absolutely amazing.
Not one.
That is amazing.
So everything just started happening.
Why do you think that was?
Yeah.
I don't know. The relationships I had there, I don't know how they translated, but I was just in a different mindset, and I was just going to go out in the local community and find people to do it.
So now, when you're going down in the local, you're just literally calling and knocking on their door? Or are people introducing you that you know? Or
Well, Candy did introduce me to Ron Salisbury, and he still advertises today. We had lunch last week. But for the most part, it was just going around with my little piece of paper and walking in and saying, I'm Erik. I'm starting a local magazine. Would you like to support me? So long story short, I ran out, I took pictures. I ended up writing a lot of the stories in the first magazine. Got Tony Flores, who's in Corona del Mar, shot our first cover with Erica Hosseini on the Balboa Ferry. And it just kind of came together. So 100 days, this is the short part. 100 days after I left my last job, we had a 104-page magazine. We threw a launch party. We had a live fashion show. We had live art. We had 400 people show up. And we had 37 advertisers in 100 days. So I knew I could do it. Like, everything was against us. And it was in a recession. Literally every person we walked into said we don't have money. And plus, you don't have a magazine.
Yeah.
Like, how do we know what this thing's going to look like? And I'm like, trust me, it's going to be good. I remember a restaurant was like, I made a deal with him. I said, here's the price of your ad. And he's like, well, what if your magazine's awful? And I'm like, well, it won't be, but pay me 10% of your ad now. And if you see it and you don't like it, you don't have to pay me the rest. So I made a lot of deals like that just to get it going.
Smart.
Yeah. So, but then, that was fun. The party was on July 1st, and July 2nd I woke up, and guess who the delivery driver is? Me. So a semi pulled up to my house on July 2nd, and they offloaded 20 pallets of these magazines, and I put them all in my 2-car garage. I had to like climb over them to get out of my garage. And I had got rid of my Mercedes. I went out and got a Jetta because I needed to save some money. I didn't have the Fletcher Jones money coming in anymore. And I would, every morning, first I had these wooden racks custom made. Doug Gastineau, who lives over on Esther, good friend of mine, made these racks for us custom, these wooden racks that you see everywhere. And I would load those up in my car, and then as many boxes that would fit in a Jetta. It's around 42 boxes that would fit. So you could take about 1,000 magazines at a rip, and I would put like 26 in my trunk and like 14 in my back seat and 6 in my front seat, and the Jetta would drag the ground, and I would leave every morning at 6 a.m., and I would go drive all over Orange County putting these racks out and putting the magazines out, come home, eat lunch, call customers. I usually have a camera on my front seat too, so while I was delivering the magazines, I'd get cards for new sales opportunities. I would take pictures of food items, and I'd start building the next issue, and I would deliver that evening after I had lunch. I would go back out and deliver another 42 boxes. And I would do that till they were gone. Hand carry them, open up the boxes, and stack every one. And then we had another magazine coming due in October. So that's how it started. And then, how we got to where we are now with 20 employees. So cut to all those different markets and scary things we could talk about. But it was just as needed. So a lot of companies, I remember even somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, we'd like to invest," at the very beginning. I'm like, "Well, you're an idiot, because there's nothing to invest in." But like, what would you do if we gave you $200,000? I'm like, nothing, because I have to build a business first, right? I don't need a secretary. I don't need a delivery driver. I don't need a photographer, as long as I can do it. So every single position in the company was, when it no longer behooved me to do it, that I could go back and make more money selling things and doing other things. So like a delivery driver, Doug's wife and her daughter were some of our first delivery drivers. I got to a point where like, hey, if I'm delivering 6 hours a day, what if I spent that time selling? So I hired somebody to do that for not very much money. Thank you so much. And then I was out selling, and we did that piece by piece. So that's how we got a social media person and an editor. And it was just piece by piece as we could afford it.
You still sell, because I
Absolutely.
introduced you to someone a couple months ago, and you showed up.
Yeah, I still do that. It's actually my primary function still. I mean, I have, when you're a business owner, you have a lot of functions, HR and editorial meetings and social media posts, all of that. But yeah, even to this day, I still have my hands in a lot of that.
Now, in the last 10 years, has there ever been a time where you're like, I don't know if this is going to make it?
Oh, hell yeah. I remember I was in the desert. This is probably only like 5 years ago, and we had 20 employees at the time, which was probably about 8 too many. We were kind of growing ahead of ourselves, and we were growing in non-revenue generating roles, so not as much sales, but generating in people to help do all the minutia, all the important minutia. And we kind of got ahead of ourselves, and I looked at our bank account, and we were not collecting right, and I was like, uh-oh, like this might be it. And I was just nervous and just as scared as I was the day that I started the business. And I got really, I don't know if I got lucky, but hard work sometimes pays off at weird times. They say the harder you work, the luckier you get. So I remember getting a phone call from somebody I'd been working on, which is BCBG, which was at the time doing really well. And they were a big national company. And I pulled into a ARCO station. I can still tell you where it was, in like Palm Springs. And we started having this conversation. And before I got off the phone, she had bought $160,000 in advertising from me. And she signed it that day. And I remember sitting in my car.
That's a lot of money.
I was sitting in my car bawling, though, right? I was just bawling because it was like a relief, but also fortuitous. And then you could also see the end again. And I remember standing in my backyard, that house that I used to deliver the magazines from. And I still do this to this day. And I'm not an overtly religious person. But you're hoping, when you look upwards, there's something there sometimes. And I remember when I started the company saying, like, thank you so much for this opportunity, looking upwards, to do something that I really enjoy doing. Right. And then that feeling I had again that day when I was crying was just like pointing upwards and just saying, like, who's ever watching out for me, thanks for that one, because I really don't want to go back to sell cars. I mean, I could if I want, but I want to do what I'm doing. I want to be able to, weird jeans and have lunch early on a Friday, and I want to be able to work, from my home office. So it's really a blessing. And every time, that's when you said it's in its infancy, I hope we're still growing, because I don't even know if I want to feel comfortable like that, right? It's actually, you work so much better, out of discomfort. It's how pearls are formed. That's how diamonds are formed. You need pressure to kind of make yourself great.
Yeah, it's interesting because everyone wants to kind of do what you're doing, right? We all want, we're taking real estate that I don't care what anyone says. Like, someone's like, oh, my dream job's a realtor. Like, oh, you woke up and you were 4 years old and you're like, I want to be an astronaut or a realtor. Come on, give me a break.
Maybe they watch a lot of Phil Dunphy.
Yeah, possibly. That guy seems really happy.
I got to be honest. Can I cut you off?
Sure. Why not?
That was polite.
Yeah, that was the most polite he's ever been.
I got to be honest. So this is the 7th episode, but we've done a lot more than what is actually published. And I did a lot of episodes before I met Cedric when I was trying to do it on my own. That right there, whatever we need to do something with it. Whatever that amount of time that monologue was is one of the first times, if not the first time, that I was like, this is why we started this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because I started a podcast because I love podcasts, and I love what they are. I love what they symbolize, which is it's just a medium to communicate.
Right.
And it's very convenient because it's in your pocket and you can listen to it when you're in the gym or walking or driving or cooking or whatever. And when we started, it was the same thing. We it was the first time we even did one together. It was super fun and just exciting. That story, it was so captivating because it was so real and because I can relate to it so much because I'm 2010 Erik right now.
Yeah.
I'm
probably 2004 Erik.
Yeah. Touche.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. 2004 or 5.
97.
What I mean, and
what about 2010?
And what makes this whole dynamic very interesting is that Cedric and I are in such different places in our life.
Yeah.
And I think the viewers know that. And you know that, and most people know that, and I'm very open about that. And you talking about especially that moment in your car, it's I mean, that is so real, and so many people can relate to that, and it's just really cool. I like that. I really, and I appreciate your vulnerability because a lot of people don't like talking about that. They like to act like everything. No, it's always been great. I've always been very successful, and it's everything's great. And it's
yeah, that's actually the worst cocktail conversation for me. Is how's everything going? They only want to hear amazing.
Yeah.
The keyword I like to use, and you're more than happy to sample this one, but my best refrain is unbelievable. Because it doesn't matter if it's a shitstorm or if you just won the lottery. It's unbelievable.
I say unbelievable 30 times.
Unbelievable.
So,
right? You just can't believe what I'm going through right now. But I think that's, you talked about on Instagram sometimes in the show. I try to make very little of what I do the show. That just doesn't interest me. I don't. I hear a lot of people always ask me, do you know this guy? Do you know that guy? It's a very common question because that's that networking side of it. Man, I have a circle of 10 friends and they were in my wedding and that's my guys. And I'm not even trying to social climb. I'm not trying to be in a special club. I am who I am. And I feel very grateful that I'm able to do this on a daily basis. And I also know that nothing's eternal. So be present, just be happy and that you're blessed to be here today doing what you want to do.
Well, your circles, I know some of those guys. They're pretty cool guys.
Oh, they're great guys. They're great guys, but it's no new friends.
Well, so one of
I don't mind, not saying that I don't want to meet new people.
Someone literally told us that. We went door knocking the other night. Someone literally said, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing, but we don't want any
new friends.
No new friends.
I was
but we don't really want to be friends, right? We just want to be here when you sell your house. And we'll be really nice to you for that whole time and bring you wine.
It was so funny. I was like, wow, that someone just said that. Good for you.
No, actually, I think I'm open to new friends, new people, new experiences, new music, new clothes. I'm very open to all of that. But in reality, just like we talked about living in pods, you kind of have like a podcast, a friend of Paul.
Yeah.
You know, you have this group of friends that's just close to you, and you know, they would for sure. You know, the people that we're talking about would call me out if I was pretentious in the least.
Right.
That's why.
That's how you know they're real friends.
They've cured me of name dropping for sure, because you know, I will not mention anybody's name that's famous.
Dude, I've gotten to a point where, and I've changed a lot since we started this. I used to be a little prick.
This episode today?
Yeah.
As
soon as you walked in the door, my life changed, Eric.
It's like he's done this before.
I have this weird thing where I'm like hypersensitive about that stuff now. People are like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or
humble plays well pretty much to all crowds.
Yeah.
But if you're legitimately humble about what you're doing and what you're accomplishing, that's the real key, right? Because nobody really wants to hear your golf score or how much money you made or who you know. Right?
I literally outside of Starbucks the other day, some guy, I was like, "Hey man, how's it going?" He's like, "Oh, it's great, man. Just closed 12 million, put another 11 million in escrow." I was like,
Shot a 76.
I'm like,
but I had 2 bogeys.
I'm like, that's how you are? Like, you just told me how much money you have in real estate sales? Like, oh, good for you, man.
Just got this black card.
yeah.
I was like, oh, cool.
My
so you're doing
buddy
well.
has a black card and he keeps talking about. I'm like,
What's his name?
I can't tell you. I can't. I'm not a name dropper.
He's one of those 10 guys that Eric's friends
And
with.
he's like, you know, you could get this and do this and this. And it's like, dude, first of all, I don't have that much money. And even if I did, there's no fucking way I would ever pull out a black card. I get embarrassed and I downgrade to the gold card from the silver card or whatever because I was embarrassed about the silver card.
Like most Americans would love to have a gold card, so just take it easy there, big guy.
Okay. I stress out about the $195 every year I have to pay for it.
Wow.
He was literally talking about, him and Ann had their anniversary dinner the other night, and he was like talking about how much money it was, and I was like, he's a pretty frugal guy, so I was like, dude, like, and I had
2-item combo.
It was $100. It was $100.
I had just
$100 dinner with wine.
I had
Wow.
just gone to Bloomingdale's like last weekend.
Name drop.
Sorry.
All Saints t-shirt.
Best store.
I got a T-shirt. We went out. My
All
wife and I
Saints
went out.
t-shirt.
Yeah.
Most expensive shirts ever bought.
Probably. And so I was like, I was like, we had just closed the deal last week. Oh, sorry. It's not supposed to talk about that either. But I was like, you don't like you don't mind. Do you enjoy spending money when it's like an occasion? He's like, it's not about spending the money. It's like, I want to know that the money I'm spending is going to be spent well. Like there's a value.
I'm all about value.
So like he was talking about going either to
I'm the opposite of that.
Pescadoo
Pescadoo on the
or
peninsula.
Javier's.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
So it was funny, but yeah, he's a frugal guy.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. That's okay. It's okay to be frugal.
It's the only way to survive this business.
Really.
I mean, because you could go, like, I've been thinking about buying a car, and it's like, I could buy a Prius, or I could buy something more expensive. It's like,
I know a guy.
yeah.
But what he doesn't understand is after he gets off the phone with the car guy, I'm calling the car guy and going, he has no money. Everything he told you is a lie.
You can't sell him that car. Anyway, but back to Eric.
Yeah, back to here. We did it
Yeah.
again. Back to Eric. So, Mikey,
Yeah.
I was really good friends with Mikey in college.
Mm.
Yeah, we actually tried to start.
That says a lot about your college education.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Now I'm a way better person.
So is Mikey. He's one of the best guys I know now. Yeah, he's an amazing.
Him and
human.
Hagstrom, dude.
Yeah.
Hagstrom is my other guy.
I can't vouch for Hags.
You can't vouch
No.
for us. Well, I think I
Name
kind of
drop.
can. Name drop.
Who are these people?
These are my buddies from college.
People that 6 people would know that listen to this podcast, which is actually 60%, right?
Yeah. No. That it's like 75. It's like 75. We did do a podcast, and we had. I don't want to name drop.
Now
We had a guy that you know that used to own a big real estate company
Yeah.
that's huge.
Great.
We
Yeah,
were
I know
having
that
lunch
guy.
with
Oh,
today.
yeah. With big arms?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I thought it was the most interesting podcast.
Oh, no one cared about it.
Nobody cared.
200 downloads.
Wow. Is that good?
No,
Oh, that's
it's
bad.
the worst by so much. And like, hopefully he doesn't listen to this. It was so bad that I realized, like, oh no.
Have you guys ever thought about just like maybe just saying the alphabet for an hour and seeing how many people download?
I don't think it would.
It might be close.
I don't know. Like the ones that do well.
Is
like,
it 200 excluding relatives, or is that inclusive of relatives?
My mom probably downloaded it 400 times.
yeah. 400 and it counts as a
She has
half.
I'm so
9
proud of
laptops
you.
on the
Yeah.
living room.
I mean, it performed so poorly. It was like, like, do people hate this person? Like, I was actually like thinking about that.
This
I'm
one
like,
might do worse than.
no, it's impossible.
I think this one's probably going to be one of the best.
Yeah, Blake's
especially
followers.
if you post it on your Instagram.
You get at least 500 downloads from Blake by himself.
Yeah.
My point was people had to literally objectively not download that podcast, so we were going to do a part 2.
Oh.
And it's like, yeah, no.
No, we need to change the title because it says part 1, and then people are gonna be like, "When did you ever not?" And we're like, just that one, just
To be continued.
But this goes back to putting out content. Like, you think that something is going to be so awesome and valuable, and certain things we invest so much more time in than others, and then they flop.
Well, I think, and I heard you say that earlier, and I didn't address it, but you have to stop making content for other people.
Yeah.
That's not what this is about, right? You're not doing it for the applause. You have to be doing it because you love to do it, believe in it, and you feel like it's original and good, right? That's where you connect. So I am, if you took a vote of my employees, probably can be, demanding and challenging, but it's not because I'm worried so much about what you're going to say when you open it. It's because I'm putting my name on it. It's my piece of art. I'm doing it for self-gratification first. It has to be up to my standards. And if it's up to my standards, hopefully other people will like it. But waiting for people to say, you're amazing, and waiting for people to say, oh my gosh, you can't believe you did this. If that's what's driving you, I don't think there's a success formula that's baked into that. I think you have to be doing it for self-edification.
Yeah, we have this conversation all the time because it's such a big part of our life now. And it's like we have to do our normal job, and then we do this on top of it.
Is it on your LinkedIn profile?
I don't know.
Podcaster?
It should be.
Host?
All I know is
my LinkedIn says co-founder of CGRE.
Wow.
And
No. I don't even have that on.
The day I did that, I was like,
I'm not even a founder
he
here.
said, is it cool if I put co-founder of CGRE? He's like, I don't care. You put CEO. Do whatever you
I
want.
was like, I could give a fuck less. Like, so I remember getting someone this like a year ago, business cards, and like, hey, what do we want to do? Principal, blah. I don't give a fuck what you put on my thing.
Yeah.
Everyone I hand, first of all, I'm never going to
cards.
hand it out. I haven't handed out a business card in 3 years. But like, I'm just like, you want like exchange phone numbers? If not, like, probably we're not going to work together.
Yeah.
Once you can
right.
get to that point mentally, like, I'm going to do me. People can jump on. If they
Right.
don't want to jump on, I
Right.
kind of like having haters. I don't know why, but I do
Right.
like having some haters. It's so freaking liberating.
Yeah. I think too is, and you're talking about as you grow and add people to your company, we've been really fortunate. I mean, I've called Ashley my left and right arm for about the past 10 years. We were fortunate enough to find Riley, our designer, who is literally, if you're listening and you own a publication, can you just tune out for about 10 seconds? The most talented designer in the United States and the hardest worker. I could just go to Mike, to Jason, and I don't want to miss any employees' names, so I'm not going to list them off. But the people that we have all share that same passion and vision, and they're all creating something that's great for them. So I think that's what's really important, is just getting that team buy-in. And if you're right, you don't care if they don't get you or not, but if you can get the people around you to get you, and then you're putting out that content, it'll resonate.
100%. Even here, and I'm thinking about your Landon Donovan story as I say this, so I'm going to make it quick. Some of these guys, they're like, what the fuck, they're psycho. Like, I don't get that guy, but like, I know they're good at what they're doing. And hopefully there's enough respect there to be good at what I'm doing. And then we just kind of make this team of people that are good at certain things. And then we somehow bring it all together.
Right.
When you're picking somebody to join your team, I hate the word employee. So when you're picking someone to join your team, like, how does that work? Like, are you finding them? Are they finding you?
I was going to ask this. I was going to ask the exact
We try through a lot of different ways. We ask for referrals from people that work there. We go on, LinkedIn and Indeed and all these places. But I have to be honest with you. I am the single worst person at picking people.
You have
to
a
join
horrible
our team.
picker?
I am awful.
The two worst pickers then in the world are in this room.
Awful.
And it's not me.
We've actually gone to we're at the point now where, and it's not funny. It's just, I literally will say, this is the person, and they've quit in one day. So, what we do now is we have some Brianna, Dominique, Riley, a couple of our employees have hired really good employees. So I said, hey, they were really good at hiring employees. It's now your job to meet with these people. And if you like them, I'll just come shake their hand. I don't want to be involved in that process at all. So that's something I can't weigh in on. I have no clue how you find the right people. And we're just so lucky to have the team that we have. Yeah. It's been through atrophy and additions and subtractions and ups and downs, but we have the single best team that we could possibly have right now.
So if you had someone, even if you weren't looking for a position, and they came and it was like, this person's a rock star, like how can we figure out a way to implement them? Would you guys?
If I could afford it, if they could make me money, or if they alleviated a situation, but not just because. Never just because. They have to be able to help us grow, either financially or culturally.
You have to add value.
Yeah, they have to add a lot of value, right? Yeah.
Yeah, especially a company your size.
Talk about the process of of delegation, right? Because that's, I think, something that every small business owner that starts to become less of a small business. Mm-hmm. At least for me, it's such a hard thing to let go. Like, we try to put out a piece of content, and I'm like, I'm not gonna post it. It's not good, Mm-hmm. And it's like, just post it. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I think you had two things there, but to your last one, I would say that I'm a big fan of. It's got to meet my standards to a certain extent, but when people start businesses, I think most people, it's like a thought out plan. We have to go 6 months, and then we have to have this much money in the bank, and there's a business plan that's approved, and we have to get a loan, and we have to do all these things. I'm a big fan of jump and the net will appear. So I'm a big fan of just do it, Nike. I'm just a big fan.
We're sponsored by Nike, by the way.
Sponsored by Nike. This segment brought to you by
it actually
Phil
really,
Knight.
It really is sponsored by Nike.
Really sponsored by Nike. Anyway.
And Optimum First Mortgage.
Yes.
And Locale. He just doesn't know.
but I don't even know what the hell I was talking about.
Sorry about that.
You were talking about jumping
in the net will appear. So I'm a big fan of, let's just put it out there. What's the worst that can happen, right? They're not going to put you in jail if they don't love you creative. Just do it and get it going and make it happen, and we'll fix mistakes. There's no time machine, right? So just put it out, get it done. If it's not great, learn from it, but just move forward.
Do you, as we're growing this and as you're still growing it, did you ever have because I'm just trying to think of issues that I've had. Have you ever had family members or people in your circles, I don't want to say jealous, but give you negative feedback or...
Oh, I mean, I think negative feedback, we're artists in a sense.
Yeah.
What we're creating is artistic. So negative feedback is... it's something that's always there, and it all stems from different places, right? Some of it stems from jealousy. I've had people tell me, "Oh, I don't like your covers. I could really help you with that. I'm not sure if you know what to do." And I'm like, "Well, why don't you go start your own publication then and make whatever you want?"
Sounds like me,
right? But that's people from the outside looking in. So there's maybe some jealousy going on there.
Criticism's the easiest thing.
Criticism, it just rolls off me. I don't really. It goes back to, I'm not doing this for you.
Yeah.
We are doing this for us. And the side benefit is it turned into a good business.
It's like one of my best friends from high school. No names, remember? Mm-hmm. Every time I post something, he goes, "You need to buy lav mics. Your audio's really bad." It's like, thanks, man. I just spent a week on that. And you can unfollow me if you'd like.
Yeah, unwarranted
it's just so unnecessary. Yeah. It's like, we're growing, we're trying, and blah, blah, but and we're always working on it, and I've gotten to a place where I feel pretty good about it, but it's always the people closest to you that can hurt you the most, I feel like, you know what I mean, that you respect.
But do you really want to do it perfect now? I mean,
no.
Does that give you any room for growth? It's like, you don't go, if you're going to plant a backyard, you're not like, give me some 80-foot trees to put in here. I don't want any room to grow.
100%. Well, here's the deal. People want to see the story. They want to see the progression.
You have to learn how to do this too. And you only learn by making mistakes. Well, not only learn, you learn by doing things right.
See that sticker? Amazon Basics?
Right.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
What really?
It's this shitty stand we saw of Gary V, blah, blah, blah.
Not sponsored by Amazon.
Not sponsored by Amazon.
Unless they want to give us some really nice ones.
That recorder, we have a new one coming. We did everything wrong. But now we know so much more about it because we did it wrong.
Right. Would I know how to make a publication if I didn't know that I had to go out with that little binder with pieces of paper in it. And could I sell as good as I sell now? I mean, if I can sell a piece of paper now that I have a 200-page magazine and the big following on Instagram and the website, I look at myself like, if you can't sell this, there's something wrong, because you used to sell something that was a lot worse. Yep. And thank you for the people that were in that first one.
Well, that's why I love.
You're a great salesman too.
I love the story of like, I got a binder and I put the thing in the front cover and I just started writing table. That's like pretty much exactly what we've done.
It looked like a third grade project. I am not kidding you. People had to look at that, and they were probably giving me most of the money out of pity.
They're like, I think this guy one of those like peddlers who says it's for his basketball team, but he looks like he's in his 30s.
I was also selling $3 chocolate bars out of the same car.
Which you probably made more money doing.
Absolutely.
Oh, that is so cool.
It's a great story. So if someone wants to learn more, if they want to follow you, where can they find you guys? Obviously you guys have a great website.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to our website, localemagazine.com, you can link to a lot of stuff from there. Our delivery maps are on there for all of our cities. So if you're looking to find a hard copy, our social media, everything is Locale Magazine. So LOCALE Magazine. That's our Instagram, our Facebook. And there's different things to follow, I guess, for different folks. But you're going to see a lot of our event coverage and event updates and really good editorial posted to Facebook. You can follow that on our website. Social media has a lot of beautiful photos of food and things to do and people. But yeah, you can follow us on all those different mediums at Locale Magazine.
So when's the next magazine come out?
Today.
Whoa.
Yeah, we have a magazine that comes out every month. So today, San Diego comes out with Rob Riggle on the cover. We'll start delivering that on Monday.
Nice.
The next.
So those are different issues.
Yeah, we make it so they're all hyper localized to that market with different cover features and things like that. April is our next Orange County issue, so April 1st. And
they can get those at most places.
Yeah, if you just look on the map on the bottom, you can click and open and see where you can find them. But you'd find them up and down the street on 17th Street in Costa Mesa. You'll find them in downtown Laguna Beach. You'll find them Corona Del Mar. You'll find them at cute shopping centers. You'll find them at the Whole Foods at Fashion Island. Just
all those rich people.
All the rich people shop.
Tanning salons. Bronze Bunny.
Hey, Jenny.
Hey, Jenny.
So,
Crazy
you can
Jenny.
find us all over the place. But you won't find it until April because we go back and pick up all of our racks. So there's no racks out now. So starting in April, you'll see those come back out with a new issue.
Cool. Thanks, man. That was awesome.
Is there anything else that you're like in need of that you want to like plug? Like anything that you guys have coming up that you're excited about? Like anything?
I mean, probably not before this goes to air. We have events all the time. We have an event coming up at Wakamigos on PCH next week. But one thing that you might want to do is find a way to follow us. So we did talk about that. Find us on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. But there's also the event side. We do about 60 events a year.
Wow.
We do our big luau at Pasea every July 4th or right before July 4th. But there's something going on in your community almost every week. So if you want to go out and sample new restaurants and try drinks and go to new shops, go to localemagazine.com or follow us on Facebook. You'll see those events, and they're really great. And we raise money for charity. So almost, I don't want to say all, but almost all of our events, we charge a donation instead of a ticket. So if you come to an event, it's $10. But like the events that we do that are that size, 100% of that goes to local charities like Surfrider, HB. Last year we donated almost $60,000 to local charities using that formula.
This literally happens.
This lady does this
every
podcast. She doesn't care.
It's
Isn't that great?
They just go.
By the way, someone just threw mail at us through the door.
That's the way you want to get your advertisement.
Yeah, it's free.
Do you guys have a podcast?
Yeah, we do. You can follow us on No We Don't Have a Podcast.
Did you see my look? I looked at him. I was like, you already said you didn't. So I'm very, you just lied to me.
Have you guys thought about that?
Thought about podcasts?
Of like having a Locale podcast?
Do you remember he was talking about how 1,800 followers and all that stuff?
Yeah, I just don't. I think it's one of those mediums. Like the same thing with video. The advent of video on TikTok and the way it's probably going to start streaming on Instagram is coming. I think the speeds have to be faster. So I've always been kicking that can down the road. I do see that, the advent of podcasts. I do feel that it is very difficult to stand out in a very crowded field. Mm-hmm. So we're probably going to stay focused on what we're doing. I wouldn't rule out the fact of doing a podcast. And I think with 5G and the faster speeds coming, there's going to be a lot of changes in media over the next 2 to 3 years.
Cool,
man.
Thanks for coming out.
All right, thanks for having me.
Great. Great job, man.
That was really good. That was a good one. We do this every time, but it's like we haven't had that many. So like when they're good, it's like,
Well, good. I'm glad it turned out like you guys like.